This is Jimmy. Jimmy has just graduated high school and has a whole lifetime of choices ahead of him. Like most intelligent boys of good character, Jimmy has elected to go to college. In addition to getting an education and the almost assured possibility of a rewarding career, Jimmy will be experiencing many new life challenges and choices. Yes, there will be temptations and dangers as well. Dangers like radical ideas, fast women, drugs, and possibly most insidious of all, alcohol. Yes, alcohol, the elixir of death. The brain-altering liquid responsible for more accidental deaths and pregnancies than Satan himself. Before you ingest any alcohol, you should know the facts.
What do I need to know about alcohol?
Alcohol affects the nervous system and the digestive system.
Additionally, alcohol can impede good sound judgment and cause memory loss. Alcohol cause lag in reaction time and make it unwise to operate vehicles or machinery. And drinking alcohol has been known to lead to illness and death. The choice is up to you. Sure, a good belt now and then gives you confidence and makes you feel good. For a little while. But the consequences could last a lifetime.
Okay, so we all know there's probably nothing we can say, no statistic we can quote, that will keep college students from drinking alcohol. You know it, and I know it. Almost all of you are at least 18 years old, and that means you are legal adults. Legal, that is, to be held completely responsible for your actions. Now, since you are more than likely going to drink, going to go to parties, yada, 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 we're going to take a look at some consequences you might not have thought of. Oh yeah, you can bet that being legal and being liable are pretty much synonymous. You're a college student. You're an adult. You can depend on yourself and your friends to act completely responsible, right? In college campuses these days, the abuse of alcohol consumption has reached epidemic proportions. When I say abuse, I don't mean simply the fact that underage people are drinking. We're talking about frequent binge drinking. Simply defined, frequent binge drinking means once a week or more drinking toxic levels of alcohol, getting drunk. Now I can bet someone out there, inwardly or outwardly, is saying, "That would be me, dude." It makes it feel like the big man on campus, huh? Frequent binge drinkers are 17 times more likely to miss a class, 10 times more likely to vandalize property, and 8 times more likely to get hurt or injured as a result of their drinking than those students who drink but do not binge. So much for big man on campus. The college binge drinking environment has been labeled by the Surgeon General as the #1 greatest health risk to college students. In the interest of inclusiveness, we talked to Dr. Schwartzstein, an expert on the subject of alcohol toxicity. Let's see if he can offer something you don't already know.
I think the three things that we tend to see in the emergency department related to alcohol for college students are the most serious being the people that come in coma. They just can't be aroused by their friends. The second are the sexual assault cases, and statistics will tell you that 1/3 to half of sexual assaults that occur in young people are alcohol related. And then the third is trauma, that people fall down, not uncommonly fall out of windows, and you'd think, gee, that's a pretty rare circumstance. We see that. They fall off of balconies and have major trauma as well. In the summer, drowning. It's that impact of judgment, that alcohol affects judgment, and things that you wouldn't do when you're sober, you do when you've been drinking and get yourself into trouble that may follow you, track you for the rest of your life in terms of a criminal record or some other, adverse outcome that's occurred to you. So if you're drinking more than 1 drink per hour for the average person, you are going to begin to build up a toxic level of alcohol in the body. 5 drinks rapidly for a male, 4 drinks for a female, so that's typically within the context of an hour or so, clearly will cause toxic levels of alcohol to build up in the system. And that's where you're going to start getting into trouble. Well, people are familiar with the fact that alcohol affects the brain. In fact, that's why most young people drink. It gets rid of the inhibitions. It makes you feel like you're the life of the party. It lets you get out there and have a good time. But with the effect of alcohol on that rational or thinking part of the brain, you may not recognize the signs and symptoms of having too much alcohol. You may dismiss it, and you may go on drinking, getting yourself into more trouble. But alcohol at toxic levels will begin to affect those parts of the brain that control breathing, blood pressure, so that your respiratory rate, your breathing rate goes down, your blood pressure may drop. And that reflex that we all have, the gag reflex, doctor sticks a wooden stick down your throat to take a look at your throat when it's sore, and you all gag. That's a common reflex, automatic, you don't think about it. That reflex is suppressed by alcohol. Alcohol has direct toxic effects on the heart. Heart's basically a muscle, squeezes obviously 60, 70, 80 times a minute throughout your life. And that muscle function, that ability to squeeze, that pump function, is adversely affected by alcohol. In the long term, people can get what's called a cardiomyopathy, real damage to the heart tissue. People take rape pretty seriously. And if you are a young man and you're now being accused of rape, and I'm not sure juries these days are all that sympathetic to the idea that, well, I had 1 too many drinks and so I was not able to make the right judgment. And in fact, a woman who has had too much to drink, while you can argue that she's somewhat contributing to having gotten into that situation, one can argue that she's not able to give consent. For a young man to say, well, the woman was agreeable. If the blood alcohol level is elevated, that doesn't constitute consent. And so you can certainly get hauled into court. For every case of alcohol poisoning that comes in, with coma or with really severe effects on the level of consciousness, we probably see 10, 15, or 20 that are sexual assault cases.
On U.S. college campuses, studies have shown that alcohol was a major contributing factor in 95% of roof or window falls, 94% of fights, 93% of sexual abuse incidents, 88% of fatalities, 87% of automobile accidents, and 78% of psychological injuries. Let me tell you something. If you're 18 or older and you're indicted in one of these situations, the defense, I guess I drank too much, will only make things worse these days. You can bet that this is even more true of sexual assault cases. Oh, you just stood by and watched. No worry. Guess again. You're going to hear about what happened to Scott Kruger, an 18-year-old freshman who attended MIT back in 1997. As a result of what was supposed to be a fun fraternity activity, a legal battle began, which continues to this day. 7 people and several corporations were sued. MIT paid $6 million to settle a claim by the Kruger family, and MIT revoked the diploma of one graduate student because of his role in the party, after he had completed his education. The party started not much different from other parties. The organizers even made sure there were non-alcoholic drinks available, and the people at the party knew they didn't have to drink. They tried to make sure nothing went wrong. But one thing did go wrong. Scott Kruger died.
1997, a young college freshman, Scott Kruger, comes to Boston, MIT, go to college. He's a strong guy, was a college or high school athlete, good shape, and like most college freshmen, he wants to have a good time while he's here at school, wants to fit in, wants to make new friends. So he joins a fraternity, and it's initiation time in the fraternity, and he's going to have a party. They're going to have a party there. That night, he goes to the party, and he's drinking. We know there's probably some beer, some punch that had alcohol in it, ultimately some rum that was consumed as well. And he's eating pizza. And as the evening goes forward, he's not feeling that well. He's getting groggy, maybe having some trouble walking. And his roommates or his fraternity mates put him down to rest. Needs to lie down, needs to rest. Common response, I think, of most people to that situation. And they feel like they've done their thing, you know, they'll let Scott sleep it off. And they even come back a little later, maybe 30, 40 minutes later. We're not sure of the exact time. But they've got a problem now. They can't arouse him, they can't wake him up. And in fact, Scott's blue. And he's blue because he's vomited in that interval, and because he's not able to protect his windpipe, he doesn't have that gag reflex, he now breathes that material from his stomach into his windpipe. He's obstructed his breathing, not getting any oxygen into his blood, and he turns blue. Well, they can't arouse him, can't wake him up, and they call 911. Paramedics arrive. And what do the paramedics find? Well, they can't arouse Scott either. They feel for a pulse in his neck. There's no pulse. His airway's blocked. He's not getting oxygen into his blood. His heart has stopped. And so they have to put a tube down his throat. They suck out pizza and other food material from his windpipe, and they put down this tube into his windpipe so they can breathe him and get oxygen into his lungs. And they take him off to the emergency department. We get Scott here in our emergency department at about 12 or 12:30 at night. He's in full cardiac arrest. We initiate resuscitation measures. We put large intravenous catheters in. We give very powerful medications, and we shock his heart. Now, fortunately for Scott at that point, he's young, he's basically healthy before all this happens, and his heart recovers. It does start beating again. And now we move him into the intensive care unit, which is where I became involved with his case. Scott now is stabilized, but we're very concerned about him. We're starting to get blood tests back. So we now had kidney damage, we had liver damage, we had heart damage, and an x-ray of his chest showed that he had pneumonia as well. So we have 4 major organ systems that have been damaged by this episode of alcohol intoxication or alcohol poisoning. It's 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday at the end of October, and I've got to be the one to wake up his parents and call them and tell them that their son is deathly ill, that he may die. They need to get here as quickly as possible. Later on in the afternoon now on Saturday, the family is arriving. Scott is stabilized some. We do have a better blood pressure now. We're able to get off some of these medications, but Scott's not waking up. We now go into the second day, it's Sunday. Again, the basic organ functions are stable and to some degree improving slightly. We're hopeful. But I go in and examine Scott, and I shine a light into his eyes, and I see that the pupils are dilated. They're not responding, they don't constrict down. And this is telling me that the brain has swollen to the point that it goes in the only place it can go, which is down, through the one hole in the skull where the spinal cord attaches to the brain. And the brain is going down through that opening and squashing that part of the brain that controls all of the basic reflexes that we require to stay alive. Basically, Scott is going into brain death. And I now have to go out and tell the family that no matter what we do, that with all of the resources of modern medicine, Scott is going to die. And at that point, they wanted to just say their goodbyes. We removed much of the equipment from the room, and we let the family sit with him as we disconnected him from the ventilator. And about 20 minutes later, the heart stopped as well. From the beginning of the party on Friday, 72 hours later, Scott's dead. Within 6 weeks, he had gone from a vibrant, alive young man with his future completely ahead of him, a bright future, to now being dead. And really a needless death, one that just didn't have to happen. And you look at him and I'm thinking, this could be my son.
3 people at this party, which was nicknamed Animal House Night, were sued. 4 people who were not even at the party were also sued, basically because they knew about the party and didn't stop it. One of the claims against the people sued was that they knew Scott needed help and they didn't provide help. Another claim was that some people tried to help but didn't do it fast enough or well enough. So you can be liable if you're at the party or not, and if you tried to help or turned your back and did nothing. The point is, when alcohol is involved and you're involved in any way, there is no safe place to be or safe way to act. The lawsuit sought millions of dollars for the damages the Kruger family suffered. The students sued didn't have the money, of course, but a judgment entered by a court against you is good in most states for 20 or 30 years. So any money those students made, anything they bought, owned, or even received as a gift for 20 or 30 years could be taken to pay the judgment. Think insurance will take care of you? Think again. What many people don't realize is that insurance purchased by students through their fraternity doesn't provide coverage if a criminal act has taken place, like providing alcohol to minors. In a similar case in California, criminal charges were brought and the 3 people most responsible for the party were convicted on involuntary manslaughter and went to prison. Criminal charges were brought in the Kruger case too. Well, there you have it. One of the conditions of the Kruger lawsuit was that this video be produced and shown to incoming college students throughout the country. Like we've mentioned before, there's little that can be said to keep you from drinking. You're all here for an education, for an empowered start to your adult life. If you're over 18, you are an adult in the eyes of the law. If you really are big enough, old enough, mature enough to drink, then you can piece together in your own minds what to you is the smart and right thing to do. We can only hope that these images and words make a difference, a little dent maybe, in the statistics. And maybe another tragic death like Scott Kruger's need not occur. Okay, so we've told you about the Scott Kruger case, and we've told you about some of the legal implications of drinking underage. So tell me something I don't know. You don't know what your parents are going to feel like when they have to bury you. You don't know what it's going to be like for your little brother or your little sister to not have you around anymore. And hopefully, you'll never have to know what it feels like to bury your best friend.
Do I know about alcohol?
What do I know about alcohol? Let me see. I've only been watching videos and classes since I was like in elementary school.
Yeah, they've told me about drinking and driving.
Well, I know not to drive a car when I've been drinking.
Yeah, I know not to let my friends drive drunk.
Yeah, I've seen livers in jars that look like they've been pickled. But that's why I don't drink much.
I know drinking causes brain damage. Maybe that explains my parents.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to college. I mean, you can drink, the guys, of course. But the fact that you can drink and there's the dorms close by, you don't have to worry about stuff, you know?
I really haven't drank much in high school.
Well, my friends and I, we've tried beer a few times. Didn't really seem to affect me much, though. Of course, we didn't drink a whole lot.
I worry about drinking, then getting in my car to go home, and that's why I don't drink.
I know when I'm in college, away from my parents, yeah, I'm gonna drink more.
Like those big parties like I see on MTV. I mean, you'll be fine with drinking. It's not that big of a deal.
Isn't that what everyone's concerned about? Drinking and driving?
Sure, as a young woman, I worry about getting taken advantage of when I'm drunk, but yeah, I worry about it. Guys are so stupid when they drink too much. It's like they think they're so macho, and that's a turnoff to me.
After all I've heard about the drinking of alcohol, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, tell me something I don't know.
My brother was gonna be an engineer. He died just trying to fit in.
Just trying to be a part
He went to college to learn.
of a college tradition.
He came home in a box.